Look at that shot. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm very pleased to have our next speaker with us today. Gary King is a long-time crop circle researcher who's had some fascinating experiences in and around crop circles. He's given some
pop star
presentations at this event over the years. And in fact, when we were talking earlier, I just set in Gary's computer up, somebody had come over to me and said, has anybody ever witnessed a crop circle occurring? And of course Gary has, and I'm sure he's going to tell you a little bit about it during his talk today, and hopefully a few rabbits out of the house. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give a very, very warm welcome, Gary.
Morning, everyone. Right, I'm specifically going to be talking about one formation today, and does everybody know about ants? Ants. A-N-S-T-Y. Right, well I'm going to be showing you this what the presentation is about. Before I do though, I just want to talk about what happens to us when we have a sense of wonder. When a magician shows us a trick and shows us the impossible. Psychologists have been trying to study what happens to us when we're in that moment, that twilight zone, when the rabbit comes out of the hat and we know it's impossible. And then we have to tell ourselves a story. Oh, it's a trick. We know it's a trick. I don't know how he does it, but it's a trick. So I can put that to bed, I can rest. The floor beneath my feet is firmly back beneath my feet because I know it's a trick. And it's psychologically, it's very interesting because that sense of wonderment has happened several times during the crop circle narrative. When a crop circle event has happened, and everybody's gone, wow. And then there's the aftermath. Then there's the stories that come out. There's the videos that are made. There's the reasons that are given why this impossible looking feat isn't so impossible, because there's an explanation over here. When you watch people sometimes go from that childlike innocence, which is so close to naivety that it makes us scared to be there. And you watch people go from that kind of wonder, that sense of wonder, you see them get deflated. And as I'll present to you during the course of this presentation, we've seen researchers, people who have had experiences, who have followed the crop circles, who have looked at all the geometric data, who have looked at how impossible it is, who have spoken to civil engineers, who have had all the reasons, rational reasons, why they shouldn't, why there's a problem with the man-made hypothesis. That those problems need to be answered. And after 10 or 15 years, something like ants comes along, and they fall off the wall. They immediately flip, and they say, this must be man-made, must be conditioned. And all of what they've experienced before all get washed away. But the interesting thing that happens is that when you're working alongside people who have looked at all the reasoning and looked at all the various factors of the crop circle and they see the things that you see, you feel like you're close with them, you're more friends with them, because they see the world the way you do in a certain kind of way. And when they flip, the relationship changes. No longer you get invited around for dinner because they're not quite sure whether or not you're lying. I've been invited to, I've lost a lot of friends over the years where I've talked to some people about crop circles and I've shown them why I believe there's problems with the man-made hypothesis, and they absorb it and they get kind of wowed by it, but they don't hold all the facts. They haven't kind of been involved in it as long as I have, so they've received a lot of information from me, maybe shown some diagrams, and then they talk to their friends. And their friends have read the newspapers and say, like, this is all sorted, it's a bunch of guys with balls. And this friend of mine desperately needs them to believe something. And so they call me up and invite me for dinner. And when I get there, I realise I'm the victim. This pisses me off because it's a bit rude, really, to suddenly you're on the spotlight. But this has happened many, many times, and it continues to happen. Find out. One of the things that's helped me over the years is this graph. Has anybody ever heard of this? It's the Dunning-Kruger cognitive bias effect. Have you heard of this one, Karen?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. When we have conversations with people about stuff, it's amazing how many people think that they're well informed about every topic, and their confidence about what they think they know about stuff is way up at the beginning. You talk to someone about crops, they go, oh yeah, I know all about that, it's in the papers. You go, well, have you been to one? No. And you talk about any other subjects you can think of, and you find that a lot of people's responses are that they're full of confidence with what they think. They know they've read the papers or whatever. And if you point out some facts to them, which they didn't know, which completely humble any arguments they fall down from the peak of Mount Stupid to the Valley of Despair. I'll give you an example. One of my most recently asked questions is, why aren't there any crop circles in the winter? I kid you not. And one guy even said to me, in a very arrogant tone, because it's sometimes the way people talk to you when they say these things. He said, well, it's obvious they're man-made. Otherwise there'd be crop circles in the winter. Implying that it's too cold for the guys to go out in the winter. And when I pointed out that there are no crops in the winter, because that's the way it is, one eye went one way and one went the other. I saw cognitive dissonance in front of me. He kind of shifted like this. Because he was so at the peak of Mount Stupid, he fell straight down into the Valley of Despair. People don't like that. We all like to be confident about what we know. And it's really hard sometimes to take people over the hump with any false confidence. And people show a reluctance and a desire sometimes, an overwhelming bias not to believe stuff. And that word belief is a bit of a problem, because I believe belief is the end of all knowledge. If you blindly believe in something, I think you're a fool. But if you can rationally lay out arguments, and those arguments, once all the fallacies and contradictions have been eradicated, and you're left with something, which is a conundrum, at least you know, if you don't know the answer to it, where you are. And that's been an important kind of guiding principle for me during this journey. So, hands thing. I'm going to let the crop circle speak for itself. Oh, yeah. It was one of those formations that come along every now and then, which separates the herd. It makes people react in strange ways, and it's interesting to know how they react. And inevitably we see a disconnection. Stunning, isn't it? My friend Stephen Grant, young friend of my son's, got interested in crop circles last year. He's only 22, and he's been tireless this year going out to get ground shots. He's really focused on the lane. He's just starting out in his research. But he went along and took these pictures on the first, about an hour after it was made public that this formation had come down. And he was able to get some really great shots that show the condition of the ground inside the formation. This green stuff is bindweed. It's not common that it's prolific across fields. Sometimes you see it, but in this particular field it was sort of all growing up and down in patches all around the crop. And where it's been laid down, all of the leaves and the little flowers, white flowers that it produces, were all kind of sitting on top of the crop. They weren't smashed or flattened or, anything you would expect to see if people were marching around it for days. They look like this.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
It's clear that, to me that the outside circle work, they're symbols of some type.
Yeah.
Does anybody know?
Yeah, come into that. No problem. People like us, researchers like us, are one of the common sort of ad hominem arguments is that I'm here to make a living out of your floppy books, which I've never read. And all my stuff on the internet's free. And we're supposed to enjoy our integrity being questioned on a daily basis, or our intelligence being questioned. It's supposed to be a fun way to make a living. If you can see past this crap and actually start to look at, the logistics, grounded logistics of what it would take to construct something like that, then personalities come out of it. And this is one of the issues I want to raise in this, is that it comes down to personalities. As humans, we tend to ignore the objective argument and focus in on the personalities. And if someone can discredit you in some way and show that maybe you said something in the wrong place, wrong time, we can discredit everything they say. I was pointing out to Karen, even if we know someone is a habitual liar and has been for most of their life, sometimes they tell the truth. And if we're not discerning enough to know, we just dismiss things. So I think paying attention is one of the key factors. So basically, it comes down to this narrative which has been running on for a long time between crop circle claimants, people who say that they make them, and people like myself who try to point out that there's a problem with that argument. I had a dinner, I was a lawyer, and I had dinner with my first boss that I haven't seen for 30 years. I was in London recently, I had dinner with him, and he said, I've seen that you're posting all this stuff on crop circles, I said, yeah, and immediately, he thought I was an alien freak. And I said, Laurie, you taught me really well, I'm not proposing anything for the crop circles. All I'm saying is that the argument that's put forward with regards to the main man thing has big problems. And I've asked for proof and tests and so on, and they've not been forthcoming. All I'm doing is challenging the argument of what they say. I'm not telling you that this is what it is and this is the message from so you should all get on board because there's going to be a flood. I'm not saying any of that. Okay, 777. In 2007, I was one of the 3 witnesses who had a crop circle appear in front of us. This is me at 4 o'clock in the morning with my girlfriend and I. Paula had gone to sit on top of this hill and that hill, and we met up with a cameraman who was UFO spotting. He had a bunch of cameras and he was trying to find UFOs. So we sat down and shared a cup of coffee with him on a ground sheet, and we sat through the night. It was completely dark, and about 3 o'clock in the morning, apart from a big white flash of light that looked like lightning, it was an ordinary night. A great night in terms of the conversation. We were having this great conversation with this cameraman guy, but other than that, it was just a night sitting on a hill. And then about 20 to 4, this flash of light happened about 20 past 3, and then about 20 to 4, he had a camera on top of the hill which had night image enhancing capabilities. And he opened the lens, and there was a 1,000-foot crop circle in front of us with 150 circles. So We got there, he got there about 11 and started recording, and everybody knows it's accepted that there was nothing in the field before, and everybody knows and doesn't deny the fact that we, three of us, were sitting on top of the hill, and nobody denies that we filmed it because it's on camera, right, the whole night. And you can see the cars going by and all the rest of it. So we got a 300-minute time frame in complete pitch darkness when 150 circles appeared, which means one circle on average every 2 minutes. Now, that's the sort of fact which I say I need to have proof if somebody says to me that they go out and make these things funny like that. Because as a lawyer, if I had a client, right, who was at a party in Wiltshire and he was accused of murdering somebody in London, and the window of opportunity for him to get to London and back and do the murder because he's on camera was 25 minutes, I'd win the case. No one would accept that this guy could have got to London and killed someone and got back in time 25 minutes later. So why isn't the same logic applied to this? 150 circles in under 300 minutes? So that's where I stand because of personal experience. One of the themes, the narratives of the crop circles has been about deception. And I think that's why I want to talk about this today in this sense, is it all comes down to these personalities of people. Am I lying to sell you books and photographs? Are the crop circle hoaxers lying? For whatever reason, we can't understand why they would lie. Maybe they want to be on TV, or who knows. It's interesting to explore the theory of the psychology of why they would want to lie, but someone's lying. Someone's lying. And you, the public who paid your tickets to come here today, are the ones ultimately who are left to decide what you think is the truth and what you think isn't. You have to pick from all these different narratives that you hear and decide for yourself, what do I feel, what do I think, is this true? Now the crop circle makers, this circle was in 1991, I think. They called it the Milk script. It's turned out to be a post-Augustan Latin, a very obscure form of post-Augustan Latin, which translated as "we oppose deception." And we've had that kind of message sent to us a couple of times. There was another time in the Navy folks who sent to us. And so, again, when I was having a conversation with Karen recently, we talked about the spiritual journey, and the spiritual journey ultimately for each of us individually is to try and find the truth of things. Someone tells you there's a divine being and he's going to do this and he does that and he does the other. At one point in your life you go, it's true. And ultimately you need to find out for yourself. If there are people who want to persuade you, then it's right to question their motives of why they want to persuade you. So it's relevant if I'm making a fortune as a public speaker to say, well, guys, thank you for that. It's right to do that. But you have to examine all the other facts as well, because it's not just about personalities, it's about what's going on. And can you answer the question of how a crop circle appears in 300 minutes? It makes it kind of human impossible. So what we're all really focused on here is deception. Okay, this crop circle was immediately dismissed, almost immediately dismissed. The first person was Charles Mallet, who said, I'll wind back to that. A friend of mine from Australia sent me this logo. It's from a company called Mothership Glass in America. They make smoking pipes for marijuana. Very expensive ones. Some of them sell for over 100 grand. Right? So, and it says, you see, it says Mothership around the outside of their logo, and it's got the flower of life design all around it in the centre, and right, it's the crop circle, right? So I got sent this by a friend of mine in Australia, and I immediately posted it online, or immediately sent it to Charles Mallet and said, have you seen this? And he immediately posted online and said, it's all wrapped up, the whole case is wrapped up, right? It's fake. It's obviously fake.
Did you send that to you before, as you came down, before that crop?
No, after that. After. It was the morning it come down. Within half an hour of it coming down, I got an email with that logo. Yeah? So, it's really, really reasonable to jump to the conclusions and be the confident one at the top of the peak of Mount Stupid and go, that's obvious, before you look at the facts. I like to step back a little bit, because whatever intelligence I believe we're dealing with, you know, it's pretty smart, and it likes us to look deeper. There's plenty of fodder, there's plenty of people who will just dismiss stuff and move away and miss the magic. So I think, you know, I've learned over the last 20 years to step back a bit. So this threw a bit of a spanner in the works, and I had people immediately emailing me and saying, it was obviously a commission job. Why are Steve and Karen out there photographing it if it's obviously a commission job, somebody asked me. This was a journalist, an award-winning journalist. You see the letters down the left-hand side, top screen? Yeah. Okay, a couple of weeks before this formation came out, this company, Mothership Glass, who I'm going to speak a lot about, came up with these letters, these symbols. And they're etched into the sides of the glass of their very expensive smoking implements. See? So the glyphs were created by the artists who own this company. They're man-made glyphs, right? Now my friend Stephen Grant, his first year at Research in Crop Circles, sat there and pondered on the crop circle in the way I sort of said to him, look, you know, when he started out I said to him, you have to experience this for yourself. Off you go. And I'll just be there if you want to answer any questions, but you're going to get all these different things coming at you and you have to figure it out. But one thing I'll tell you to do is sit and look at it and stare at it. And he did. And he figured out that it actually spelt Mothership. Each letter, actually, each of these symbols actually represented a letter from our alphabet because of the double H's in Mothership. You kind of twisted it around and figured it out. This was before anybody else had kind of figured it out. So we can see here the glyphs that represent the alphabet. Now, what was interesting for me was that at last year's Devices lectures, I gave a whole lecture about the alphabet. And the fact that crop circles very rarely use the alphabet. You know, people say to us, you know, if the aliens are trying to communicate with us, why don't they just give us it in English? Why all the cryptic stuff? You know, and I had a whole lecture about that. It's online on YouTube if you want to watch it. It's called A Language of All Words. And so when this crop circle came down just after that lecture, and I saw these symbols in the outside, I was even getting messages from people going, oh, this must be something to do with your lecture. I was like, it's just so odd that you've got these symbols. But now we're finding out, as the story's unfolding, that these guys in America have created their company. Not the crop circle, these symbols. Now, one of the big reasons that it's immediately dismissed, and come on, let's be serious now. Why would aliens be talking to us about marijuana? Take me to your dealer. It's an old cliche, isn't it? Aliens and pot. Why? Why is there a connection between aliens and pot? Who came up with that meme? Who put the connection between alien and plant? When this crop circle came down in 2011, it was, like Anstey, immediately dismissed. Why? Because it's a pot-smoking alien. It can't be real, it can't be genuine, it's got to be these guys' reports. So people don't visit it. People I've known for more than 10 years who've researched crop circles and told me on the day that appeared, oh my God, I don't go back. It's man-made. I'm going to go and have a look. Of course I did. And I got kind of litmus test for crop circles, right? I mean, it's not foolproof, but you know, one of the things that I had to keep things simple. First one's time frame. This was a place called Cheryl, right by the main road, the A4, heavily used. And people working in that field through the night with torches would have undoubtedly been seen. We know that it appeared during that night. So we know that we've got a 5 or 6 hour window time frame again in the darkness, right? So time frame, number one. We've got conditions of darkness, we've got conditions where someone could easily be seen, and yet they work through the night, and in the morning at first light, there's a crop circle. Second condition is the dip. There's a dip which you can't see very well from in this photo, you just see a little bit at the top, but there's a big dip in the field, like where the face and that sits. The circles go up this side and then over the other. So that means that these circles are actually ovals from the air, from on the ground, so that they look like circles from above. That the land has to be compensated for, right? Now, you'll have to ask yourself the question, like, if you can start figuring out ovals so that they look like circles from the air, is that going to be easier or harder to do? And then the final thing is the condition of the lay. Now, because I got to it earlier, it's unfortunate I've got to the end of in my time early, is that it's undamaged. Let me tell you, if you pick up a piece of weed and you pinch it with your finger, it breaks, and that piece of weed will die. If you go back there in a couple of days, it will start going brown. And so, you go to a crop circle, and if somebody's pushed a 3-foot ball and they've gone like this every 18 inches, then you will see consistent lines. It's really clear, it's really easy, it's smashed up, and it dies really soon after. It doesn't lift back up to the light. And what you don't see is after about a week or two, you see all the stuff on the left and right hand side of the path that's all perfect and still lifted back up to the light. You see a dead piece where people have walked right through the middle. So if humans kill it by just walking on it, why isn't all of it dead? Is somebody flagged it with boards? You've got to answer these questions if you want to agree with the man-made hypothesis. And so this formation didn't demonstrate any of those factors. So I've got everybody saying, look, it's obviously, you know, I'm totally confident, I'm at the peak of Mount Stupid, it's man-made because it's about pot-smoking aliens. Why on earth would aliens want to talk to us about marijuana?
And also the smoke, there's no connection between the smoke and the
Smoke coming out the pipe?
Yeah.
I talked about this in last year's lecture, because last year's lecture about the alphabet was all about, ended up being like talking about the wind and the mystery of the wind as by the ancients. One of the Native American reasons for smoking a peace pipe is to make the invisible mystery of the air visible, to see it swirls and eddies, because they revere the wind, they revere the breath, and I talked a lot about it actually. And so yeah, the smoke actually, smoking a pipe in Native American sense was for that. Other reasons too, but sitting in a circle and revealing the way the wind moves and shows the shared space between you connects. I've got to catch up on those of this because I've got a quote from Laura wrote about it. Colin Andrews. So soon after Charles Malick dismissed it from being man-made, because obviously there's a logo from a company in America, and case closed. Colin Andrews came out, and does everybody know Colin Andrews?
Yeah.
A lot could be said, I'll keep it short. He's a guy that initially sort of brought crop circles to the public's attention, and has had a career of 34 years where he's still regarded by some people, in America, still regarded by some people as kind of authority on it. But I question some of the things he says. One of the things he said after Anstey was, I know the team who made it, and I can't tell you their names, but I have it on good authority that it was made over 3 days with the consent of the farmer. That's quite categoric statements, yeah? I know these people, they told me, and this is how it all went down. 3 days. Okay? Everybody jumped on it. Thank you, Hal Collin. He's given us the answer. We can all now stop being in the sense of wonder. We can all now go to bed and think, God knows. So, I went down to, he implied, I should point out, he implied in this statement that it's the same people who make crop sand circles. Now, there's a guy called Julian Richardson who's always put on public demonstrations over the years of making really crappy crop circles. And Stuart Dyke, the Crop Circle Connector, and his girlfriend, Matthew Williams, the hoaxer, they all get together and go down to a beach, and they use a rake and they mark out a picture in the ground, in the sand. Which kind of gives you the indication that, oh, if people can do that and create these fantastic patterns on the sand, then crop circles must be man-made as well, right? There's no comparison between the medium, the conditions of daylight, and all the rest of it. It's so easy to just put a label on the sand and rub it out. If you've got a problem, you can't rub weed out, you become a snake. So there's lots of problems with that. But he implied that these guys were the ones responsible for Anstey. And Stuart Dyke, the Crop Circle Connector, immediately went on Colin's Facebook page and said, because he was going on a radio show that night, Coast to Coast with George Norrie, and he said, you better not say that, you know, it's us, because we've got nothing to do with it. I want you to retract the statement. So he had to retract it. So Colin Andrews, you know, first public statement about he knows all the answers straight away, suffers a bit of a blowback. Because the people he implied said, we didn't do it. Linda Moulton Howling came along, and she called the farmer up at Anstey, and she kind of like, hello, Linda Moulton Howling. And this was after this woman had had a week of being completely bombarded by people. And the woman explained to her, the farmer, Karen Price, explained to her that, you know, no, I didn't have any association with the person, no, I didn't have, and got fed up answering questions because they were being like kind of pushed. We put to her, so she got the phone out. Linda Moulton Howling called me up. Oh, that's Karen Price has put the phone down on me and treated me so rudely and blah, 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 blah. And I said, okay, I'll try to calm her down. I said, have a cup of tea. Calm down. She's had a week, this woman's had a week of being bombarded. She's had her life completely turned upside down by this person. You can't go barging in there and just speak to them respectfully, but just drop everything. She'll run the business. Softly, softly, we're doing it. I've been down there, spoken to her. She's arranged an interview. Work with us. So Linda initially, I contacted Linda to get involved because we wanted to follow up the American end. We wanted to get someone in Bellingham to go to this mothership glass and get a statement from. We're still conducting inquiries. We're sending out emails to mothership glass and going, right guys, did you do everything? What's your statement on this? Linda Moulton Howling employs a researcher called Ian Halling, who is he? No one's ever heard of him. And he goes out and does an in-depth investigation and he establishes that the formation was made over 2 weeks. And this is a working farm. Anstey is on a pick-your-own farm. There are people on that site from 6:30 in the morning until 11 o'clock at night during the peak season. And there's all these berry beds, raised berry beds. That, you know, you're standing right next to the field where the crop circle would be. There's a shop, there's a sitting outside of a cup of coffee area, the whole 9 yards. If anyone would have been in that field for any length of time, they would have been seen, and we live in an age where an iPhone goes, ch-ch, then you're on, but nothing. And yet, this experienced, so-called seasoned investigator, Linda Moulton Howling, goes on Coast to Coast radio and says, yeah, got all the answers. It was done. So he said, well, what about all the people in the village? No one knew anything. No one, they're all frightened of the farmer, she said. This little 8-stone woman has intimidated 120 people in the village. And he made a load of other insubstantial, stupid things about bindweed, about plastic covers blocking people's views, and not nonsense really. But there we are. We've got 2 seasoned investigators who, for whatever reason, in my view, are lying to you. I don't know why. I don't know why Colin Andrews would come out and be convinced of it, but I believe he's lying. This is Karen. Now, there was an initial confusion because when Stephen Grant, my young friend, went along there to carry out the initial investigation, he spoke to Karen, and he's new to it, and he wasn't sure who the farmer was. He thought she was the farmer, but it's her dad who's the farmer. So Karen was initially regarded as the farmer, but she's the person who runs the farm shop on her dad's farm, who farms the dogs. And there's an important distinction to make, because there was some confusion later on, and people sort of, you know, got a bit in the tiff about it. When we turned up, she agreed to give us a final interview. I wrote a blog about Karen, about what Colin Andrews had said, about all the horrific people that had gone into her shop and stuck cameras in their faces and been rude and intimidated her staff and written stuff on the internet. She'd agreed to let people into the crop circle for a fee, and all fee was going to be donated to a charity, or split up between charities. And one of the things with Wiltshire pharmacists, they really support the air ambulance services because it's voluntary, it's a charity, and farming communities really rely on helicopters. So whenever they can raise money, she does marathons and all this kind of stuff, this lady, and they give money to the air ambulance service. So just as we arrived, I wrote a blog, and she liked my blog. She said, I think I can trust you, I'll give you the interview. She wouldn't give me an on-camera interview, which I was disappointed about. But she sat there, Lucy Pringle came along with me as well, and we sat there and did a final interview with her in the aftermath of the crop circle. And when we arrived, she was just giving the cheque to one of the air ambulance people. She divided the money up into, I think it was about 600 quid to one and 600 to another and so on. And she'd even received, the man from charity had told her that he'd had phone calls from people saying that he mustn't accept the money because it's all based on a hoax. They didn't want the money to be donated to the area of the shoot because apparently the crop circle was a fake. Unbelievable. There's me and Lucy, posed for a couple of shots after she gave us the interview. Okay. Now the formation itself, I'll just talk a little bit about the logistics again, about making formations. Paul Jacobs actually hired a surveyor to go along and have a look at the formation and give an estimate as to how he would make that formation, how much they would charge, and how they would go about it as professionals. So, there was something like they wanted, they said they only could use 2 people. Because if you use more than 2 people, and you put, like, you have quadrants, you divide the area into quadrants, and you put 2 and 2 and 2 and 2, then the prisons won't match. Something will go wrong. So it's better to use 2 people, in their estimation, to methodically do the whole thing, right? So they talked about the pattern in the middle of the formation, the flower of life design and the leaf. And they said that they would use GPS. There's a company now called Mainscape that can project GPS coordinates of any design onto a piece of land, and you walk around with this pole, and when you get to the area where you've got to stake in beeps or vibrates, when you go right, that's what you stake in there, and you move it around, and it lines up some satellites, and that's how surveying is done nowadays, right? All done with the GPSs. So this is how this guy said he would do it. So he'd be walking through all the standing wheat, finding their spot, whacking in the stake, moving around, pegging out all their stakes. Okay, for the central design, he said he wanted 6 days just to do the central leaf design in the centre. And then when it came to the glyphs on the outside, he said, oh, there's a bit of a problem there. We would need to put posts in at 1 metre intervals. Like this. This is taken from another formation, but I use this picture to just give you an illustration. So imagine it now, right? You're standing in standing wheat, and you're moving along with your little pole, and you go right there, and you whack your pole in, and then you move on, so you're killing all this wheat here that you're standing on, and you're whacking all your poles in. Now you reckon, this guy, that they could do 100 stakes a day between 2 of them. 100 a day. Now I talked to Michael about it, right, as a professional architect. Michael said, there's no way you can do that with 1 metre apart. When you go around those tight little corners, and around some of those intricate little bends and stuff, you're going to need posts every couple of inches, so that you get it marked out nice and straight as we found in the field. 1 metre apart, you're going to get problems. So, even on their estimate of 100 a day, for all of those 20 glyphs around the outside, which have got to be staked out inside and outside, then you've got to somehow comb all the wheat back into place afterwards, is a joke, because they wanted 2 weeks to do that. So, you know, I've got an Emmy Award-winning journalist, right, who's telling me that this crop circles must be fake because people who claim they make crop circles are friends on Facebook with people who say they're researchers. That's all the evidence she needs. But when I present this kind of evidence about a surveyor, a professional surveyor, and say, well, this is what professionals want, you know, imagine again, we go back to the law, right? This guy is convicted of criminally damaging this farmer's field. And the prosecution say, well, he's admitted it, Your Honour, so he's obviously in. And I stand up as his defence lawyer and say, look, my client's in. We've got a professional here who said that, you know, it takes 3 weeks to do it, and your claim is that he did it overnight. So you can't prosecute it, because it's impossible. And I win. This Japanese beer company, this year, made this crop circle. It cost them $1 million, and they used exactly the same methods that I've just described to you. They had 40 guys working from dusk till dawn for 7 days to make that. It's a biggie, 750 metres long by 300 metres wide, it's quite big. But if you look at the area of a flattened crop, it's not that much at all, it's all just letters. It's not, complex geometry that squares the circle when you do this, that, and the other with it, and all that sort of stuff. So we're not talking about intellectual profiling design or anything like that with this. We're talking about what it takes to make a design in the field. And this took these guys a week. It cost this company $1 million. And why did they do it? Because they wanted publicity. They've made videos and they've done all sorts, and they've milked this $1 million for as much as they can get. Why? To sell beer. Because that's what they want to do. If you spend money, as any company, promoting something, it's because you want to sell kit. No other reason. We oppose deception. Someone's lying to you about what it takes to make a crop circle, and someone's lying to you about a lot of the facts surrounding individual crop circles. If you step back and take a look at the 7,000 crop circles, about 54% of those crop circles have appeared in Wiltshire and the rest scattered around the world. When you actually step back and you say, all right, look, even if we say that so many of them were made by men, if we've got a percentage of them that are anonymous, then we need to be asking different questions. Not just keep talking about the ones that we think are man-made. I mean, it shows a lack of intelligence if we can't talk about that there's a mystery. Anything? This is me. Right here. 20 years ago. When I first came through the crop circles, I mentioned I was a lawyer, but I didn't mention that the lawyer, working my guts out, trying to be rich and famous for 10 years, killed me nearly. I had a massive nervous breakdown. My marriage was on it, and I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. I went to the doctors, and he recommended I take these pills. I took these pills. It kept making me feel worse. So I kind of started what you could say was the spiritual journey, really, because I looked into yoga and I looked into Tai Chi and I started looking into alternative stuff because of the pills that the doctor gave me. I was reading on these pills and they said, oh, side effects of these pills that are supposed to make you feel less suicidal, actually one of the side effects is to make you feel more suicidal. I've been head down trying to be rich for 10 years and I really didn't know a lot about the world really. And so, to think that doctors would be giving you bad stuff at that time in my life was a bit of a problem. Anyway, I went down to a mate's house one night and he passed me a marijuana joint. He said, look, this is what's going to chill you out. So I smoked it and it did. So I thought, this is illegal, it's banned, The government are protecting us, keeping us safe from this stuff. Why on earth would this plant make me feel better and these pills make me feel worse? I'm trying to push on. So I started to look into the stuff. Medical marijuana. And then you realise, you go back to the 1930s and you've got a guy called Randolph Hearst who wanted to start his own paper processing business, Hemp was being used up to that point for paper, and this guy come up with a new method for pulping up wood and making paper. And so there was a big campaign that was done in America in the 1930s where they turned it into the demon weed, and they wanted to outlaw it. So that there was a lot of lobbying on behalf of this Randolph Hearst, this media tycoon, to make hemp production illegal so that he could push out his paper stuff. So that's very interesting, and there seems to be a lot of evidence to back up the fact that that was all going on behind the scenes. In the 1960s, then you start to get a change. Oh, let me point this out. Caduceus, I saw that on the back of the picture when I was seeing this as Caduceus, this healing symbol, has been part of the crop circle narrative. When was this? I think 2003 or 4, something like that. Karen and Steve's yearbook said that this is Caduceus, the winged staff of Hermes, which is the symbol for healing. So there is a part of the crop circle narrative here which is actually talking about healing, and in my own experience of coming to the crop circles was about me trying to find healing for myself, alternative kind of healing, learning about what other things were out there that were considered wacky and fringe and trying to find out if any of them were true. A lot of them. You're not going to get cured of cancer if you put a mirror on the east wall, eventually. I think that you need sometimes, often, more than that. Some people are lucky, but quite often some of this stuff worries me. So, this man here has Parkinson's disease.
Hi, Larry. How are you? Come in. Come in. Good to see you. How you feeling? It's been a bit of a rough week. Really. And the best way to take it is put it under your tongue and rub it in your cheek. Don't do too much. You're going to be asleep all afternoon. You know what you should do? No. Don't try to communicate. Just relax. See what happens.
We know from animal experiments that the endogenous cannabinoid system is very important in regulating motor activity, that very type of activity that is impaired in Parkinson's disease. From animal experiments, we also know that boosting certain branches of the endocannabinoid system is helpful in relieving symptoms of Parkinson's. Finally, from anecdotal information, we know that certain patients who smoke marijuana experience relief of their symptoms.
I think you're calmed down. So quickly. Isn't that amazing?
He used just a single drop, and his hands afterwards were rock steady, and the dyskinesia left.
Your voice is coming back. It works most of the time. In fact, it's... Did you guys eat lunch? Are you hungry now? 20 a.m. Actually, a person like me could really use marijuana. It makes me pretty angry that I can't get it in my home state.
The number one frustration that I have is knowing that there is this untapped potential that comes from what marijuana is teaching us to generate new medicines, and being stuck because of financial issues or political issues. That is extremely frustrating.
We now know that medical marijuana controls dyskinesia, and yet it's not available to us.
So this was the campaign in the 1930s. Reefer Madness. You go on YouTube, right, type in Reefer Madness, and you'll see these black and white films that were produced by the Ministry of Propaganda that show people going crazy when they smoked one puff of a spliff. They smoke, their eyes went big, and they axe murdered their girlfriends and stuff. You wouldn't believe it, they're all respectable people sitting around in some sort of New York apartment, and then they take one spliff and they become psychopathic maniacs. And so all the parents were like, yeah, go get the kids to do the weed. It's all lies. It's lies. This doesn't happen. And actually, we're just seeing patients. That one patient that you just saw, there's a beautiful, I was going to put a video in of this little kid it will make me cry. You know, this battle that his father has had to treat his son. Because the government is just you're not having it. You can have all these pills, you can have all these pharmaceuticals, but you're not having that. And he's demonstrated that it helps. Why would the people who are charged in a so-called democracy, who are charged with looking after us, stop us, or at least stop us from researching something which could be potentially helpful for us? It's a lie. The war on drugs has been the biggest, longest running war against the civilian population of any other wars. It outtrumps every war in money, in expenditure, in resources, in law enforcement, in court procedures. It is the thing which hasn't worked. All the figures are in now. There is more availability of drugs at a cheaper price since the beginning of the war on drugs than there ever was before. And here's the thing, everybody really knows this. We all really know it, don't we? We know it hasn't worked. It was a good idea in the start, and let's keep our kids away from this bad stuff. Unfortunately, the good stuff got mixed in, and psychedelic, which are plants, which were used by our ancestors for millennia, got lumped in with cocaine and heroin and ecstasy and all these design drugs. There should be a line where we talk about, there's a great book I've got called The History of Writers on Drugs, and they talk about Coleridge and some of the other writers who were using opium and different drugs. They're kind of abstract, they're writing from abstract, they're out of the body. Whereas when you read stuff that's written by people who use psychedelics, they're kind of into nature, and they go deeper, like philosophers, into subjects. It changes the mindset of the plants that you use. So I differentiate between a plant and a drug. But the war on drugs has scooped up these plants which can be beneficial to us, and we've got a big problem with the fact that really good people have come forward to the governments and said, look, you know, we need to look at this. And what we're seeing is a bit of a revolution. Portugal for the last 15 years have changed everything in their society by ending the war on drugs and possession. If you look at what's happened to crime and the rest of it, it's working. They've got 15 years under their belt now where they've taken a different approach, treating people who've got drug addictions and problems as patients, not criminals, help them to get back on track with their lives. That's the way to treat this if people with drug addiction problems. There's underlying causes from society and bad backgrounds that lead people to drug addiction. To criminalise them has been shown to be massively cruel, and it's all against us. There's so many people I know that are the victims, whether it's by their children or whatever, who've been caught up in this stuff. In the 60s, when Nixon brought that out, the Vietnam War was going on. Now, he wanted young people to be going off and getting themselves killed, right, for his war. And suddenly people were realising that, you know, we don't really want to be doing this. Our friends are coming back and they're not the same, they're shadow of their former selves because they've seen so much trauma. And protests began to emerge. And there was a coinciding in this time in our history with a reawakening of use of psychedelic plants. Has everybody heard of Haight Ashbury in San Francisco? The hippie revolution now. You know, in 1958, an anthropologist called Gordon Wasson left the Amazon jungle and brought back psychedelic mushrooms to Harvard University. And him and Timothy Leary and a bunch of others took these mushrooms, and they said, Timothy Leary, quote, he learned more about psychiatry in 15 hours than he had in 15 years. And they wanted to research this stuff. And there was a big explosion around psychedelic plants and what they thought they could do and this whole hippie movement. And it became a big problem for the government because basically, you had a bunch of people go to a field, they were educated from Berkeley, they weren't stupid, they went to a field, they smoked some spliffs, they ate some mushrooms, and suddenly all of the vows of lies and propaganda that their government were pumping at them fell away. And they said, you know, we want to go for love. And they were beaten for it. The protests and the police intimidation and all this sort of stuff. And by the 70s, the streets were flooded with heroin. And a lot of it got wiped out, and a lot of the stuff that came out in that 60s movement got absorbed into the new age, and recognition that these were used as shamanic plants, that these had history on the planet, that have been used probably in India, Soma, and various other places, has tried to wheedle its way through by a few kind of visionaries, Terence McKenna and people like that. So we've got a situation in America now where we've got private prisons, and we get them here. You know, the Prime Minister's wife, coincidentally, in this country, you know, he owns the private prisons, G4S. And the government promise a certain quota of prisoners every month to these private prisons to make sure that their prisons are full, right? Well, they don't like, you know, they're a bit skinny, the government, so they don't really like to spend a lot of money and a long time trying to catch the big guys, because that's money and resources and, you know, years of stuff. They don't get the instant political results. So what they do is they round up all the kids who are selling £10 bags on the streets, and the ones who can't afford it, who are forced into crime, and ram them into these jails. I saw this graph. In 1965, there were 2 arrests an hour for marijuana. And now, in 2015, there were 73 an hour. And you think that this was being shown to sort of say, look, you know, we've got a big problem by the government, you know, these drugs are overtaking us, right? This is actually shown by a stockbroker who was telling you to invest in private prisons, because you'll get a good return on your buck. We've privatised it, turned it into a business. We're funneling people through with poor and disadvantaged. There's a war against over 30% of the population of the prisoners in America, which has the largest population, are in there for marijuana. This is a war on the population, and it's gone on and on and on. There's a wonderful documentary made by, I've forgotten his name, The House I Live In, it's called. It was on Channel 4, you can watch it. It's called The House I Live In. If you get a chance, watch it about the drug policies in America and what's going on with these things and how ineffective and against us it's become. So even when the experts, what a great name for the drugs expert, Professor Dunn. But this guy, Professor Dunn, he's a proper guy, you know, he's a proper expert. He did all the studies and he came back to the government with what we all know and said, you know, actually alcohol and tobacco that you guys make a fortune off is killing everyone. And it's actually less dangerous to smoke a spliff, and it's actually less dangerous to take MDMA than it is to take this sort of stuff. So we need to have a think. They say. He now speaks at Glastonbury. I'm actually writing some articles for a book that he's publishing. I got in touch with him and he's asked me to write some stuff about my experiences in this book that they're writing about. So that's the way to get rid of argument, isn't it, if you don't like what someone says? Get rid of them. So the crop circles have told us no more war. This was a crop circle from 2014, kind of deciphered as a binary code, dots and dashes, and spelled out no more war. So we all thought, you know, well, there's enough wars going on in the world, isn't there? We're constantly at war with Iran, Middle East, you know, what's going on, bombs, military-industrial complex. It's a good message, no more war, yeah, we know that. But what about if he was talking about some other wars for us to focus on? What about if he was talking about the lies and the wars that are told to us by our governments, the people that are supposed to represent us, or by corrupt members or people who've got vested interests, who influence people who've got vested interests, whatever. If we find out that there is a case to suggest that the people who we are asking to protect us are actually victimising us. There's a quote from this documentary called The House I Live In, where one guy says it's actually a Holocaust in slow motion against the population, because we're jailing more people, we're criminalising more people. When they come out of prisons for these minor marijuana offences, they can't get visas, they can't get jobs, they can't get benefits, they can't get housing. So it creates a perpetual cycle of criminalisation that ultimately we all pay for and just festers up. And they tell us they're doing a good job and the justice system's working, but it's not. The war's actually against us. And so it's in the crop circle narrative now of the war. We've also had the good old symbol for peace. So, you know, whoever makes the crop circles wants us to sort some stuff out and stop fighting and maybe find some alternatives. That's a good suggestion. But human beings will always have differing views. We're always going to meet someone that's at the other end of a spectrum. And it's about how you deal with those people. Our history isn't very good with how we deal with those people. We usually burn them if they disagree, or we get rid of dissenters, just like sadly Professor Nutt. But I suggest that you know, there's this spectrum of chaos and uniformity, right? If you look at chaos and uniformity, we all live in society and we've all kind of grown up as rational beings and say, look, we need some uniformity in our lives, because otherwise it would be chaotic. We need to all agree to drive down one side of the road, otherwise we're always smashing into each other, right? So we agree on some uniformity. But if we push uniformity too far, we resist it. We start making us wear uniforms and picking us up on what, you know, how short our hair is and all that, what needs to get in school. We want to be in chaos, and that's where the punk movement and some of these other things come in, so take to the other end of the spectrum. And so with any subject, if you're talking to somebody and you have a totally different view, like when I went through university, my landlord was a biochemist who done a psychology degree, who was writing a book on consciousness, the biological basis of consciousness, right? And he believes that life is just an accident, it's just random, patch on patch on patch, and we just haven't stopped believing. I don't. I believe in the anthropic principle, and I believe there's an intelligent design that kind of, I like this theory, right? So we're different sides of the table. I learned so much talking to this guy, because I found the meaning between our differences without personalising the subject, calling them stupid or liars or whatever.
You are now.
Am I now? I'm nearly there. Rabbi, priest and atheist sitting down and mediating together between completely different views.
You want me to do it again?
One more clap, you guys? Perfect.
All right.
Introduce yourself, please.
My name is Jim Morrell. I'm a rabbi. I'm here to experience one of God's creations. I have smoked marijuana many years ago. I haven't done it for a while.
I'm Chris Schuler. I'm an Episcopal priest. Never smoked it all that much, probably more in high school.
My name's Carlos Dillard. I'm a conservative homosexual atheist. I grew up Southern Baptist, part of my life in foster care, and then I grew up part of my life adopted as a Roman Catholic. So this is going to be really interesting.
When's the last time you smoked marijuana?
Maybe like an hour or so.
What does your religion say about marijuana? Is it okay to smoke marijuana?
I would say the majority of people who self-identify as Christians, they're probably not too down on smoking marijuana. There's no biblical precedent for this, really. Although I have to say, I've known thousands of Episcopalians, and plenty of them smoke dope.
We call it weed now. Like smoking dope is like smoking like dope. Like
Okay.
I was like, they're smoking
we're
dope.
talking about weed here.
Okay.
Let me change that to weed.
Clean it, just right now.
I'd actually need some coaching.
I got you. Let me
Put
teach
some
you.
of this in
No,
here.
No. You just kind of like want to crunch that all up.
If it's like everything else in life, it won't take much for me to be like, stoned out of my gourd. Hold it.
Hold it, and then you're gonna light it at the same time, and pull, and. Oh, this is gonna be fun.
Okay, I'm on the coughing break now. Thank you. My lungs are not used to smoke. Now that was impressive.
This is kind of cool. I'm smoking with some priests and a rabbi. Check off my bucket list.
I definitely feel a little something.
Like what?
Just a little slower.
A little slower. You just get a little bit slower.
Yeah. I also feel burning right here where it's so impossible to inhale.
Oh, see, look.
Because I'm really
like
not
that.
used to the smoke.
He's not a quitter. Take one for the team.
You come through some challenges, right? You started off as a religious person. At least
Oh,
you were
yes.
brought
Really
up
religious.
in a religious.
Really religious. Catholic
So
school.
what happened?
I was 14 years old, and my priest denied my confirmation. He actually said that the diocese excommunicated me for the church because I openly had gay sex acts in our school, which I did. I'm like, okay, so I started doing more research on God and what is God, and no one can't deny that someone brilliant did this.
Well,
But
who did
I
it?
don't know who did it. Personally, I can't depend on one person, and that kind of sounds insane.
The truthfulness, the beauty, and the palpability of God is actually stronger than anything else in my life. I mean, it sounds corny, but all the stories say the same thing when you trim all the fat.
No, there's no story. Science outdone all of those stories. I believe in the original religion, which was pretty much astrology. And it was just a way of humans of understanding. And that's exactly what you're doing with religion. You're trying to justify a way to understand. Why would God put me into the life I was in for so long? Why are there 37,000 kids dying every day? That's not miraculous. I'm really high, sorry. That was really strong. I took a really big hit.
I'm
on
feeling
the
a little
bone.
something. You are not alone.
I like what you're saying. But everything that you say about who you are, what your life is like, what you do, what you think, to me, that speaks about a person of faith. Because you have a basic faith in the world, in the universe. You do. And you might not call that God, but there's something inside of you that really is a spiritual person, I can tell. I just met you, but I can love you because why? Because I see you. The Bible says, when I see your face, I see the face of God.
I like that.
Jim, you've been holding that joint for a while. Do you need a light?
Yeah, light it up.
That is lit. Maybe this will work for all of us. Just think of God as all things true, knowing that we don't know all things.
Yeah, that's good.
You guys believe in life outside of Earth?
If you look at the vastness of the universe, mathematically, there's no way that there aren't other creatures in this universe.
I agree with you.
Gotta be.
Gotta be. Every religion has something coming out of the sky. Like, what's the obsession with the sky?
I like this guy.
I like this
Carlos,
guy too.
I like you. Maybe, maybe it's the beginning of a friendship, right?
Yeah, I'll be your friend. I'm everybody's friend.
Yeah.
Is marijuana mentioned in any holy books?
The anointing oil, as found in the book of Exodus, had some qualities that would elevate the person. And there is a theory that one of those was oil from the hemp plant. Historically, many people who've had mystical experiences, I think it's very likely that they were under the influence of some mind-altering substance.
Do you think more people should smoke? More religious people?
What I would definitely like to see are all the weed laws changed to be just about the same exact thing as what beer and liquor are.
If it helps you become a better person, if it lifts you up, if it gives you something, a new view of life, it's a very positive thing.
God made dirt don't hurt. God made weed don't make you bleed.
Chris, what's today?
Ash Wednesday, and the way many practice, they take ash and put a cross on the forehead. We were talking about using the ash from the weed.
I'm okay with it because, you know, like, hey, I don't care.
So Carlos, you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Oh, look, these ashes are like a cool blue. Come on, look at that, my goodness. Amen.
Amen.
That came out all right, didn't it?
Thanks, Chris. Okay, you want me to do this? I don't know any prayers.
You just say your most loving thing, it'll be good.
I just give out good vibes on these to you.
Amen.
And to everyone that you love.
You want me to give you a blessing?
Yes.
Please.
Yivarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you and keep you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God lift up God's spirit to you, and may God always surround you with shalom, with peace.
Amen.
I know that maybe for you the word God doesn't have that much meaning, but it has meaning for me. So if you can accept the blessing from God.
Sure, I sure can.
Yivarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. God bless you and keep you. Yar Adonai panav elecha v'kunecha. And may God always surround you and bless you with peace. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
You know, Jill, when you said the word shalom, you gave me goosebumps.
See?
So
It's a powerful word.
that must be
Shalom is a good word. I really enjoyed being with you.
I like you guys
It's
are
a
really
blessing.
cool. Good
The
vibes,
glow is happening.
yeah. I want to hit the bong again.
I'll be the fire. That would kill me. I'd be coughing for the next week. It's like that macho thing that I just don't have when it comes to dope.
It's not dope.
I mean, weed. Did you guys know about my socks?
I saw weed on them earlier.
Come on.
It involves lies and deception. But I've come up with this phrase over the years called informing other activities. The things I've learned from the reactions and the people, the way they've behaved around the crop circles, have made me look at so many other subjects in life, politics, philosophy, economics, and realise that a lot of the same principles are the same. We are charged with the job of trying to find the balance between who's lying to us and who isn't, who the vested interest and who aren't. And I could stand here all day long, and if I was motivated as some preacher to try and say to you, you need to believe, because then crop circles will change the world, and blah, blah, blah. Nonsense. Nonsense. It is how it's supposed to be. The stories that are there, and all these counter stories are there, to ask each and every one of you to be more discerning and to look into these things and examine these facts honestly for yourself. Because if you're not, you're only willfully deceiving yourselves. And that deception is something that I really oppose. Because you can't be taught someone who's deceiving themselves. You have to be honest with yourself. That gift. So, my take on Anthony, why wouldn't some benevolent force, unknown, want to point out to us that there is this plant which we have used, our ancestors have used for a very long time, that we had a relationship on, that can relieve people of their suffering with Parkinson's disease. We've been lied to about it for various vested interests and continue to be lied to about it, although there's this turmoil on the planet now where it's changing, it's being legalised in various states around America and so on. And so we're at a tipping point with a lot of these things, and it all involves this truth and lies and what's good for us as a community of people. So I suggest to you that Anstey needed a closer look. From the father's point of view, she absolutely denied, and I believe her, that she had anything to do with these people. She told me she opened the curtain in the morning, and there was the crop circle. So I leave it to your good judgment. Let's all go and have a split. You're feeling anxious?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Gary.